Yes, one question is, what prompted you to do this now?
Okay, there were a couple of things. The main sort of content was that in the exhibit labels first edition, the first chapter was called The Big Idea.
Right.
And I wasn't sure whether it should be the first chapter. I wasn't sure how important it was, but I felt that it was. And by the second edition, I knew that it was really important. So I kept it as the first chapter and I expanded it. But then over the years since then, I realized a lot of people say, oh, this is my big idea. And they tell me what it was. And I go like, well, I think that's a lot more like a goal or an objective or a sort of something that doesn't have to do with really an idea. It has to do with what you want to accomplish, what you want to have the visitor be able to do or something like that. So I thought we need to have more discussion and more examples and just a chance for people to really get involved in it more. And from the workshops that I'd been giving over the years, I had accumulated a lot of exercises and ways of looking at the issues and heard arguments for and against. So I just thought this needs to be expanded. So I thought, well, what form would the expansion be best in? Not another print book. And so my sort of the media, excuse me, and the creative side of the production, I was very much inspired by a book called Letters to Lucy, which was an iBook written by Frank Schaeffer, and he's a ex-evangelical preacher, and it was his musings about life and love and art for his granddaughter. And it was the most creative thing I'd ever seen. And it was online. I heard him interviewed on NPR about the book right after Billy Graham died. And so I went online and I bought the book, and it's really long. It's like multiple hundreds of pages of long. Every page was different. Every page had a slightly different design. There were certain commonalities, but it was so beautifully designed. It was so rich. And then there was media embedded in it. There was motion, there was audio, there was video, it was just, and then he'd be talking about something in the art world that I didn't understand, but because I was reading it on my iPad, I could just jump off, go to the internet, research that thing that it was, I said, what's that? And then learn about it and then come back into the book. So I was all excited. I was like, oh, I could do an iBook. I could do this, multimedia iBook. Right? Having never done it before.
Well, now you have.
It's so modest compared to Letters to Lucy, and I so love Letters to Lucy still. So right when I was getting sort of excited about this was the Visitor Studies Association meeting in Chicago in 2018, it must have been. And Letty Perez from Mexico City, who's a museum studies researcher and
who just lit up Twitter.
I mean, all of Mexico knows about this.
Yeah, that's right. Well, not just Mexico.
Argentina. So her partner, Paul Rodriguez, came with her to the Visitor Studies meeting. And I had met them actually when I had been on a meeting in Mexico City the same year before, pretty recently. So we got together and we were having a meal together and spending some time together. And they were asking me, so what are you thinking about doing? And I said, well, I want to do this book about the big idea, but I want it to be like really digital and really beautiful and blah, blah, blah. And Paul said, well, maybe I could help you with that. Yeah. I'm a digital media designer and I've always wanted to do a digital book like that. He's done publications, sort of magazine kind of layout stuff, pretty straightforward. But he was excited about the idea, and I showed them Letters to Lucy. And so we said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. So that was way back then. And we thought we would be done by Christmas. Yeah. Oh, we were so
Well,
lucky.
you should know better from your analog publishing adventures.
Well, little did I know how much harder it would be because it's not straight type on a page. It's an exhibit. It's, you know, words and images working together in a beautiful layout that's attractive, that's inspirational. It's not just words on the page. So it was much more complicated, and we were learning as we were going along. We both had good instincts about what we wanted it to be like, but we didn't have some of the skills. So we were really learning. The learning curve was pretty steep. So those are kind of the two of the background, why I wanted to do it and why I ended up doing the content the way it looks.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, since obviously the idea of a big idea certainly resonates with me and my work and the way I think about exhibits. Why you think it still has? Why you think it maybe hasn't taken hold as sort of naturally as you would think it would?
Um, I've learned that the uptake on ideas in this field is really slow. And I'm thrilled with the amount of attention that it has got. And I'm thrilled with the amount of times that I hear people say that they're using it in their exhibit planning process. I'm just totally excited about it. And then I'm even more excited when I hear that their big idea really is a big idea.
Yeah, sure.
And that's great. That's great.
I'm just wondering. I mean, it's interesting that it's the first chapter in a book about labels, because it seems like the big idea is certainly something that lends itself when you're thinking about writing, but also about exhibits. So I don't know how you triangulate your work and thinking about labels, or if you do that with the idea of big ideas in exhibits.
Oh, absolutely. Because when you sit down, if it, you know, I would be hired to be the label writer for an exhibition, and if there wasn't a big idea, what should I write? What's going to tell me what's the most important thing to say about this one object or this one idea or this one interactive? It has to link to something. Otherwise, people can just say, well, why'd you write about that? I think you should have written about this other thing that I'm much more interested in. So it really sets the focus for the writer. And then it also, with the big idea, it gives you that end at the end, it gives you to the evaluation to refer back to is, what did visitors think this was about? Not that they have to regurgitate the big idea verbatim, but to have them say something that resonates with what your intention of the idea of this exhibition was. It's all about focus.
Well, yeah, focus, and I like that word intention, intentionality, because I'm sure we both heard people talking about exhibitions, and the people will often say well, people look like they're having fun, so that's a successful exhibition, but there's no real sense of, well, what we hope people got out of this experience was this, and we saw that they got that out of this experience because of this. It's just like, well, there's a lot of people in that exhibit hall, or gee, everybody always looks like they're having fun, or they say they have a good time, which could be a criteria in and of itself, of course, but
Yep.
it's just interesting, that notion of intentionality.
Yeah. And
So
go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I was going to say that intentionality is really important for planning, but when you're doing evaluation, you want to also be very open to looking at what happened, not starting with the intentionality, but look at what happened and then reflect on the intentionality. Not go into the evaluation just looking for what you intended.
Yeah, that's sometimes a tricky balance too.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to be, like you say, observant and open to what visitors might be doing, even if what they're doing is unexpected, but still have some criteria for judging the effectiveness.
Yeah, as long as it has something to do with resonating with the idea, and especially important is not misunderstanding what your idea. That's even more dangerous.
So now that you've completed this e-publication and I guess PDF, so what formats does it come in? I guess, is there a Windows version and a Mac version and a PDF version, or?
That clearly was one of the things that slowed us down, is that the book was developed on a Macintosh platform, using software and the hardware of Macintosh. And of course, we hoped that it would run on everybody's machine, but lo and behold, it didn't. And so we had to start scrambling, because the first time I tested it out, I sent it out to people not knowing what kind of device they were using. And it's not only the device, whether it's a Macintosh or a Windows, it's whether it's an iPad or an iPhone or a laptop or whatever. So we suddenly discovered that Windows didn't talk to this, that didn't speak that language. And Apple, as we know, has always been very proprietary and very parochial about, we have our way of doing it and we're not going to just bend over backwards for anybody. So we had to start, looking all over the internet for who's helping these two things to communicate, these two ideas. And we did find that the Adobe Digital Editions translated the EPUB into a clean enough version that we could still call it an EPUB. It still could do the things that the EPUB does. But if it's not working on your device, if you're out of date, or if you can't read that file, or there's so many variables and so many complications, that we wanted to offer sort of the stripped down, bare bones version of the content as a PDF, so almost anybody could read it.
Yeah, sure.
And even there is a little 45-second video at the end of the book that doesn't always work on everybody's device. And it's really sad, because it's really a cool little video, I think.
Yeah. Well, that leads into what I was going to ask you. What is your favorite, or some of your favorite parts of the e-publication, the digital version of this, that allowed you to do things that obviously you couldn't do in a print book?
The little video, I was really proud of that, because I had that in my mind, and I tried to use that idea in the workshops that I was giving. I'd draw pictures and try and make sense out of it, but having a designer to work with and motion, it really made it come together in a very nice way for me.
So now are you going to play that video in your workshops?
I'm not doing workshops anymore,
Oh, really?
What I did on Saturday? I had a big retirement party.
Oh, well, there's an added incentive for people to buy both your book and your digital version.
That's right. Yeah.
Well,
the one thing that didn't make it into the EPUB, it worked sometimes, but it just wasn't reliable enough, was one of the most complicated exercises. It's on page 30. There's 3 different examples of content for 3 different kinds of different topics of 3 different kinds of exhibitions, 3 different exhibition topics. And it's content that people would call main ideas. And the challenge for the exercise is to look at those ideas and try and come up with a big idea that holds them all, or holds most of them. Maybe you want to throw something away if it doesn't really work, or if it seems peripheral. And I had this other little video that said, if you completed these 3 exercises, you deserve a reward. And I'm a pyromaniac. So it was a little video of me lighting an indoor sparkler that lasts about 15 seconds. Woohoo! So
Well,
some folks that.
well, that's great. Well, are there any other parting thoughts in honor of the successful multi-platform, multimedia version of the big idea?
Say that again. What's the question again?
No, just if you have any other parting thoughts about the project.
Let me see what the questions I wrote and what we didn't cover maybe. Who I worked with, I wanted to make sure that Paul Rodriguez gets a shout out there because he was so talented and so wonderful to work with. Let's see. What took so long was, it's a complex design, different modalities, the internet issues. What am I most proud of? You were sort of asking that. I think the overall look as well as the video, at the there.
It's very friendly. It's very Beverly in a positive way.
Yeah. Some people said lose the lemurs.
Oh, no, I like no. The thing is, I like that.
Yeah. Well, some people said the art museum people won't like the lemurs.
Oh.
Too bad. Let's see. What do I hope for the product, the sales? I asked my current publisher of the exhibit labels books, how many copies have been sold? And they said over the period of time that the book has been, since 1996 to now, 17,000 copies have been sold.
That's great.
So I think that's pretty good. And I'm thinking, well, okay, what kind of sales am I hoping for the
17,000 or bust?
I don't think that's quite possible, but
you never can. The thing is, of course, the portability and the affordability also of a digital version. I mean, I don't need to tell you, books, including museum books, certainly have a value, but museum books in particular are perceived as expensive relative to other books. And I'm sure that there are all sorts of reasons for that, but hey, who can tell?
But more important than the sales to me would be user satisfaction of people being glad that they have it and using it and finding it useful. The hope for I hope what doesn't happen is I've supposedly retired, right? And
so you say.
And now I've opened myself up to social media, which means I'm not invisible. So that's not a problem. Let me see if I have anything else. The last issue is finally when we'd gone through our testing and we'd made the changes and we'd gotten it really to work the best we could, and it had to be not perfect, it had to be good enough. Okay, so we got it good enough. We had the whole PayPal thing set up, and I finally got to the point where I could press the button to let it go, right? So then I ran downstairs and asked my husband to buy a copy online, right? And use his credit card. So he did. So he was my first purchase. And then I go to my PayPal thing and it says $15 from James Desjardins has been paid and the money is on hold.
Oh.
My money is impounded. Why? Well, because it's my first business account. They don't know who I am, because there's no money in my account to rectify any challenges.
Yeah, guarantee any refunds.
Yeah, refunds, and also they wanted to see the tracking number for the delivery. I'm going like, this is an EPUB. There's no tracking. It's instant delivery. Isn't PayPal set up to do that? And the guy says, no.
Not really. Yeah.
PayPal, get with it. So I just noticed today that Jim, okay, he's the first one in the line. The line is now going up as new orders come in, and I noticed that his $15 was released today.
Wow.
So there's hope.
Don't spend it all in one place.
Right. Oh gosh.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's I of course wish you lots of success with that, because certainly getting the idea of big ideas and getting people to think, I'm going to say, more forcefully about that will only make better and clearer exhibitions, which of course we both like and visitors like.
Absolutely.
So I think that's great.
Well, it's so generous of you to be interested and willing to do this to help it get.
That's the best part of the museum business, people helping each other. So I'm happy to do that.